Hello, welcome to a very special Kendallcast podcast special thing. I don't know if it's associated with bad at video games or not, but that's. But I'm here to. We're here to talk about the UFO 50 collection with Mr. Brandon Thompson, who I know from Star Wars Cards World. Uh, so yeah, let's dive right in. So what is your gaming what are your gaming bona fides, Brandon?
Gaming bona fides.
Or
All
your
right, let's start
background or
off.
whatever. Just like, is this the first video game you ever played or
Well, no, man. I'm sure like a lot of the of your friends or whatever. I've spent my childhood playing games. Gaming was always a part of my life, and as long as I can remember, the first time I remember playing a video game, I was 3, and I was over at my cousin Jeff's house, and you do the thing where you play Super Mario Brothers on the NES for the first time, and immediately walk into the Goomba, uh, and that's how you find out everything in life is a lie. Not everybody is out to be the good guy, right? So yeah, so I kind of from there just I got an NES for Christmas as a kid, and um, played a lot of different games for it. And also, we had uh, a PC in my house, and so I'm kind of an elder millennial, right? I'm turning 40 next month. Uh, is it next month? No, it's December. Sorry. Uh,
that's
but
how you know you're getting
we
old,
had.
is you don't know when your birthday is.
Well, I forgot what month it is. I was like, is it November now? No, it's not. Okay. So yeah, we had a PC, so I kind of grew up playing a lot of older PC games too. And so the as far as my tastes go, I'm pretty eclectic, but I will say that as a kid, it was a little unusual that my favorite genres were like point and click adventure games.
Mm.
Some of my earliest childhood memories that I'm like, of games that I just fell in love with are a lot of the old Sierra games that were released
Mm-hmm.
on the computer, and also some of the ICOM games for the NES, like Deja Vu, Shadowgate, Uninvited. I fell in love with those when I was a kid and played through those. Played through LucasArts games as well on PC. Um, and just kind of kept that love over the years. And really, I didn't do a whole lot of uh, deep dives into action stuff. I did play some action games, sure, absolutely. Um, but the ones I was into were kind of not the ones that a lot of other people were into. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
my friends were into Mario, were into Zelda, Metroid, all of the classic titles that everybody was kind of playing. And then I was kind of out here in left field playing some different sort of stuff like, Vice Project Doom and all sorts of other stuff. And so a few years back, I decided, you know what? I have a lot of NES games. I have a
Mm-hmm.
pretty, not like a huge, I'm not one of those guys who just has, oodles of money to spend on on
Right.
video games, mostly because I spent that on board games.
Right.
But but I still had this collection, and I had never gotten rid of my original NES collection. And I said, you know what? How many of these did I ever actually beat?
Mm.
Like how many of them did I actually finish? And I started counting, and I was like, oh man, that's just embarrassing, because I think it was like I had like 130 or so, and I was like, I've beaten like 15 of these.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So that got me thinking. I was like, man, I would like to I'd like to beat a few more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I pulled out one that I'd always thought if I spent the time on this, I could probably beat it, but uh what happened was I had an ankle issue in 2021, and in 2022 I got a surgery that kind of took me out for about 6 weeks from walking. So I was using crutches, and it has sucked. But so I would spend a lot of time in front of the TV, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to beat Zelda 2. I'm just going to take the time and do this now. So I popped the cartridge in, and I sank about a month into it, and then I beat it. And then at the end of that, I was like, oh my God, I just beat Zelda 2, Adventure of Link. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt godlike. I was like, wow, I have this power. What else can I beat? And so I decided to pull out Yo Noid, and I actually beat Yo Noid, and it took me maybe a month to get through Yo Noid, and then I just kept going. I was like, that's it. It's like revenge, for I'm going back through, and now I'm older and wiser. Can
Right,
I
right,
beat
right.
the games that defeated me as a child? It kind of just became this quest to and my goal was to get to I think 75% of my collection I wanted to have beat, because there's stuff that I was like, look, I could, but I'm just not putting myself through it, like
Mhm.
ghosts and goblins. I was like,
Right, right,
man,
right.
like there's some dudes on the internet that can beat it, and I'm like, no, 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 I'm not doing it. I'm
Well, and
not really that good.
some of those games, it's like you turn it on, and I mean, you talked about the getting killed by the first Goomba, but like that's that's like a learning experience. It's like, okay, you get killed by him once, and you're like, okay, well, so that's a bad guy. I'm not going to get killed by the bad guy next time. Some of these games, it's just like you turn it on, and there's like 100 things shooting at you from moment one, and you've got like, and your
Yeah,
character walks at 2 miles an hour, and
right.
yeah, the clunk, and the there's like input delay and all this, and it's like, man, it's just, there's 100 other games I could play right now. Or like we're going to talk about in the UFO 50, there's been a few games where it's like, well, I could spend another 10 hours on this, but or I could just go to the next game. Um and
Well,
I could maybe have
that's
fun.
for sure. But there's also maybe a masochistic part of me in there somewhere that says the things that are worth doing are never easy,
Mhm.
you know. And sometimes, I kind of appreciate that challenge sometimes, where I'm like, what this quest taught me is not to view it like personally, like when you fail, what I mean, when you
Mhm.
die, when you respawn, sometimes you just want to throw the controller at the screen, you just want to get you know pissed off at the game, uh but also, you've learned something from that. It wasn't a failure,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
just another, like, okay, now I know not to do that. And that's something that that's a perspective I didn't have as a kid.
Mhm.
I'm not a particularly patient person. It's not one of my virtues. So it's really nice to be able to train that aspect of yourself to say, you know what, it doesn't matter if I like this or not. I'm doing it. I am going to beat this game,
Right, right, right,
and
right.
it doesn't matter what this is going to throw at me. You just have to have that mindset to
Mhm.
get through
Mhm.
some of these old games.
And
um, I
and
think
for a
the
long time,
hardest one.
for a long time I thought that mindset was kind of silly, because it's like, at the end of the day, it's just a video game. And then I got old enough to realize that there are a lot of that I have so few wins in life now that, like, at least a
Give me a
video
break.
game,
Come on.
if you put effort, and you put the time into it, like, you'll actually be rewarded for your efforts, even if it's only in the form of
Right, right.
an end game cutscene or something. Whereas in life, that's not always the case, or at least if it, or even if it is, it's
Yeah.
more on a, you know it's not as it's not as common. Okay, so yeah, go. What was the
At least
hardest?
you
You
have
say you
the
were going to say the
bragging
hardest
rights.
one. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say the hardest ones, you really have to adopt that mindset. Um, because there was some games that I came back to and I was like, wow, this game was actually easier than I expected. Um, and there was a few that started off that I think some of the hardest ones that I beat on NES on this playthrough, Abadox was pretty rough. I'm not particularly great at shmups.
Mm,
And I didn't really play a lot of them. So, and that game is particularly brutal. If you die, you lose all of your power ups, and those
yeah.
power ups make the game significantly easier.
Hmm. Hmm.
But of course I died, and so I had to like, um, play the game with my crappy weapons.
Uh huh. Uh
And
huh.
I remember with that game in particular, I got to the very last level and I was having such a hard time. And I had like something to do that night. Like I was like DJing at an event or something. And I had to just do it old school and just leave the game running and then came back to it I think I came back to it like after I got back from wherever I was going and ended up playing until 4 in the morning because I was like, I'm not doing this again. This is
Hmm.
happening right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I really wish that there were easier shmups because I really like the format. Like I like especially
Hmm.
the like spaceship, the Gradius style stuff where you're flying around and you're shooting stuff but I'm just not good at them. And
Hmm.
it's like it's like part of the genre is that it's a bullet hell that you die in two shots and then you lose a bunch of progress and yeah you lose all your power ups and all this and it's like I wish that there was one that like I played through Super Mario Land earlier this year for the Game Boy
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
the way that they do and I think it's genius and crazy that more games don't do this. The way that they do the underwater levels is basically making it a shmup.
Hmm.
And it's the and but it's it's a Mario game, so it's not hard. Like
Is that the
like
one where he has the submarine?
yeah, he has the submarine. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's like those are some that's some of my favorite levels in any Mario game. And it's like why can't more games utilize the shmup mechanic without having 700 people on shooting at you constantly. Um
Tiger Heli isn't that bad. If you
okay.
wanted kind of an easier shmup,
Okay.
that was a decently doable. It's not like easy, but you can definitely go through
Okay.
it pretty quick.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I'm sure that there are actually dozens of them because I don't know anything about video games. But it's just, the ones that you hear about at least are the ones that when I randomly pick one up, they're always super
Sure.
hard.
Well,
Um,
so many of the games are artificially increased
right.
difficulty. They have artificially increased difficulty.
Mhm.
I
Right, right.
had one of the hardest games that I beat, besides Abadox on NES, that I'd never heard anyone talk about it before, was the Lone Ranger,
Okay.
which it kind of came out late in the NES's life cycle, and it was a great game with one horrible flaw, which is intentional design, I'm sure,
Mhm.
but the game is divided into chapters, and I think there's like 6 chapters in this game.
Mhm.
The problem is if you die at any point during the chapter, you go back to the beginning of the chapter.
Mm.
Now, in the very first chapter, that's a mild annoyance. In the second one, like and afterwards, it starts to be like, the very last chapter, it was taking me about 45 minutes
Mm.
for a run, to do that chapter. If you die at any of that, like you're back at the beginning. You know what I mean? And like you just have to do it over and
Yeah.
over. And that was a bit much, but somehow I persevered. I'm a crazy man and I managed to do it and I was like, "Oh my God. I can't believe I just did that." But Yeah, man, it's artificial difficulty right there.
Yeah. All right, so and I'll just give a real quick background on my video game-ness. Mostly for you, listeners probably know me, but I grew up. I did not ever own a gaming console. The closest thing I did get a Game Boy Color when I was 12 to play Pokemon. But
Hmm.
never had a TV console. Even the Game Boy, I only had Pokemon games and I got the Super Mario Deluxe, so it's not like I had 100 games for my Game Boy.
Right.
And I was always the guy that went over to my friend's house to play and was really bad.
Hmm.
And then around high school, I got into real-time strategy games on the PC. But never really had a proper gaming PC, so couldn't get super into PC gaming. And then also I was playing in bands, and well, I think a lot of people drop off of gaming in high school or college to focus on having an interesting life. And then probably about 10 years ago, I got I got sort of did the rebuy my childhood, buy all the things I couldn't afford when I was a kid kind of thing, with a Nintendo 64, and I got a retro trio to play Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and all this stuff. And I've also gotten really into, even though I'm terrible at video games, I really love Dark Souls. So
Mm.
I always end up playing these Dark Souls and Cuphead, and just end up playing these super difficult, punishing things, and to the point where now if I play a game, I've talked to my wife about this. She was playing Days Gone, the zombie biker game from a few years ago,
Yeah.
and there's a particularly difficult level, which this sounds like really bad game design to me, but there's it's only 3 points in the game, but if you die there 3 times, it gives you the choice of just skipping it. And we were talking about just skipping it or whatever. But I was 3 times, if I died 3 times against a boss, I would be disappointed, because that's not enough times. I feel like if you fight a boss fight, you should die to them at least 10 times if it's a major boss.
Oh
Otherwise,
man.
what's even the point? Um,
You mentioned Cuphead, and I did go through Cuphead, and I think that it took me the same amount of time to beat the last boss as it did the whole rest of the game.
oh yeah.
I could not beat that guy for the life of me, and then I finally did. It's like, yes, but I never got into the Dark Souls stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying with Elden Ring a little bit here and there,
Mm-hmm.
kind of playing through that, but
I
you
love
know,
Elden Ring.
it's got its moments where I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool, and then I die, and I'm like, this game sucks.
My
But
favorite,
yeah,
one of my favorite things is the hard time, or is it the hard drive? Is the video game one website, the week that Elden Ring came out? It was
mm,
guide to beating the first boss in Elden Ring. Wait a minute, that was just a random dude, because you go to there's it's one of the, it's at the very beginning of the game, there's this village of knights, and then there's a featured enemy that you think is a
hmm,
boss. And I probably
right,
spent 4 hours just grinding on that little section. And then finally I beat that guy, and then he respawns when I heal at the bonfire. I'm like, that was just a random dude? I thought that was
yeah,
at
yeah,
least a
no,
mini
that was
boss,
something special. Yeah, that's
But I will say, coming back to UFO 50, I was very excited about Elden Ring when it came out, and I put 200 hours into it. UFO 50 is the game that it is the first time that I've had that same feeling that I had with Elden Ring, where I just want
no,
to keep coming back to it, and just am really
yeah,
I have not been excited about a video game since Elden Ring. Um
mm,
so UFO 50, for those who who have no idea and are like, why has Kendall been spamming his YouTube page with shorts of UFO 50 videos for the last month? It is a collection of games done by some indie developers. I think Derek Yu is the main guy. That is from a fictional video game console called the LX from the
Yeah, I
from the
think so.
1980s. And the games like have fictional release dates that go from like 1982 to 1989, and it's 50 games, and it is not like a mini game collection. It's not, these are not like little silly arcade games. These are all fully formed games that might have come out theoretically in the 80s, although I think that a lot of them have more modern design philosophies. But it's a really neat collection, and just the consistency of quality is so high that it's great. I will say, like, one of the things you said about your playing the Nintendo games is like, sometimes you got to push through for the difficulty and stuff. What I think is important to note is that in those Nintendo games, sometimes it's not worth. Sometimes it really isn't worth it. Like sometimes some games are believe it or not, some games from the 80s were not designed well. Um, but the nice thing about the UFO 50 collection is, that the people that made them, this is a collection that they took 8 years to make. That the people that made them, put some craft into it. So you play a game for 20 minutes and you're like, this seems pretty bad. I think I'm going to bounce off of it. But then you think in the back of your head, well, maybe if I give it another 45 minutes, something will click. And almost in every situation, with certain exceptions, that clicks. So how did you stumble on the UFO 50 collection, Brandon?
Actually, I have one of my best friends is a serious gamer, and he's my friend James, and he just said, Brandon, I don't know if you know about this, but if you don't know about this, you need to know about this. UFO 50 is coming out this week, and I said, what? He's like, yeah, dude, this is going to be right up your alley, and he showed me the trailer video for it, and I was like, sold. Yeah, I'm all about retro. NES is my favorite console, although, I played games on other consoles, definitely, but like NES just has the special place in my heart. And so, yeah, I think I got to it, maybe the day after it launched or something. And I was like, oh man. Unfortunately, it was also it's been a busy couple of months for me. Just in my personal life, there's, just a lot of events and things going on. So I didn't get it. Still haven't got a chance to really, really sink my teeth into it the way that I would like to with some of them. But I have played all 50 games, and I've definitely gotten golds and cherries. So
nice.
But yeah, I'm loving it, man.
Yeah. So I will say one thing. Like I like retro games. Don't get me wrong. I like them a lot. I am, like I said, I'm bad at video games, and sometimes I do find that they're like either just a little too hard or just a little too, unforgiving to the point that it's like I've got a million other things to play. I really like. I think that in the history of games, the biggest mistake that game designers made was in the jump from the 16-bit to 3D, just completely abandoning all of 16-bit as opposed to building off of their the design philosophies of 2D games, as opposed to like kind of continuing to build off of that with designs, because like those early 3D games have some problems. And so I really like that in the last decade, we've had Sonic Mania, we've had although I haven't played Shovel Knight, but Shovel Knight and
you need to fix that.
Other things. Yeah, it's on my
Shovel Knight's one of my favorite games.
It's on my list, but it's like the idea of building games with with all the things that modern game designers know, and then building a game that is a two-dimensional game, or something that doesn't rely on just pushing graphics forward, because I think that honestly I'm not particularly interested in super realistic graphics or whatever. Like, I just want to play a game where the gameplay feels good. Something that I really like
I
about
get
the
it.
UFO 50 collection is it even intentionally abandons the kinds of things that you would assume, like, you should be able to save, and you should be able to, not have to start the game over and over again. I find that really interesting.
So I'm going to interject here just a little
Mhm.
bit and kind of touch on what you said there, because just thinking about it, when in '96, when like uh, we started seeing Nintendo 64 come out, right? Like Mario 64 came out. That's like the first 3D like Nintendo game that was really 3D. I mean,
Mhm.
they were there was 3D was a buzzword at the time.
Right.
Everyone with Donkey Kong Country, it was like, oh man, they're kind of 3D. It was such a big deal. And then Mario 64 comes out, and I mean that game's still, I think, incredible, considering it's just like a new medium. It's in
Oh
3D,
yeah.
everything is cool. So I'm not sure that I agree that they quote unquote abandoned the design philosophy of 16-bit. It was kind of new. They're pushing new stuff, and they did a great job with that. But what I did see is in that same era, the imitators, right? People that were making the jump to 3D. I think that is a particularly painful era of gaming. It's not one that I'm particularly nostalgic for the way that some people are.
Mhm.
Um, just because the graphics were kind of bad, the controls were kind of awkward.
Right,
It's
they
kind of
hadn't
like going
figured
back
out.
and
Yeah, they hadn't figured it out. But I mean, I'm speaking when I talk about design philosophy. I'm speaking at a really really basic level. Like they stopped making 2D platformers, for a little
yeah, okay,
for the
yeah,
most part for a little while. They
yeah,
stopped making certain genres of games that, like, the best
hmm
2D platformers, the best are arguably, even up until now, some of the best 2D platformers, Super Mario World, the Genesis Sonic games, Super Metroid, etc., were made in that 16-bit era, and then they kind of didn't make another one of those until the Game Boy
hmm
Advance came out.
right. And I think a lot of that is just due to the sales, right?
Right.
You got
Oh
to have
yeah.
the wow factor to yeah,
Certainly.
but
I mean, Symphony of the Night. I don't know how its sales were, but like Symphony of the Night, and then whatever the Nintendo 64 3D version of Castlevania was, like the Nintendo 64 one was the one that people were excited about at the time, even though Symphony of the Night came out
right.
and historically has been considered one of the best games ever. But
hmm Yeah. Yeah, I kind of I skipped over the PlayStation and the PlayStation 2 because I always had Nintendo consoles,
mhm.
and so I didn't play Final Fantasy VII until I was like in my 20s. Um, and I went back and bought like a used PlayStation and was able to play some of the old ones. So I did finally get a chance to revisit them. But
Mhm.
what I was saying about it's kind of painful. It's kind of difficult to play some of the games from that era. And I was just thinking about Barbuda, right, on UFO 50.
Uh-huh.
How when UFO 50 starts off, if you play those titles in chronological order, the first one is kind of janky.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's start talking about UFO 50. Now that we're half an hour into the podcast, let's actually start talking about UFO
Nice.
50. So I want to talk to you about Barbuda a little bit, because it I'm kind of annoyed that it's the first game in the thing, because I have a feeling a lot of people played Barbuda and then just bounced off the whole collection. Because it's
I say
like,
that's their problem.
yeah, well, yeah,
That
I guess, yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I did not like Barbuda. I thought that, like, I understand, like, starting it off with like a really simple game and everything. But like I just kind of feel like Barbuda has like some elements of it that are like just intentionally just there to annoy people. Like the way how slow you move is like
Hmm.
eh. um and the the limits and the jumping and then it just I don't know, it just never I played it enough to get my house item. Because there's for those listening, every game has basically 3 achievements. You meet one achievement to get an item for your house, and then it like populates your house. You have this screen that has like a completely empty house, and then it like adds little things. So I got I think it's like an egg or something that
Mm.
because you just have to get to 25 rooms. But then basically when you beat the game, you get your cartridge goes gold, and then when you do either like a new game plus or beat the game with a particular score or without using continues or whatever, every game has a different criteria. Then that's where you cherry a game. And so personally, my goal has been to try to get the garden item for every game. Because I mean, I've golded a few, but I feel like by the time you get the garden item, usually if there's like a mechanic that needs to click, then that has clicked.
Yeah, sure.
And that never happened with Barbuda. Like I kind of just
You
felt like
know,
I was wandering around, and it was like, okay, and here's another room with another thing that I can do, and then I don't know, it didn't never really clicked with me.
yeah,
So
I I saw a lot of people kind of had that reaction, and I get it because to me, I didn't have that reaction to Barbuda at all,
mhm.
actually. Um, and I think it's just because of my childhood playing games that were that janky,
Yeah.
that were just like that, and that I was used to it. I was like, oh, cool, like they're doing this and they're modeling this off of like games like Adventure or
Mhm.
Deep Cut, Paganitsu, and stuff that I played as a kid. So it didn't feel overly janky. It just felt like, oh, I'm playing a game from that era when
Mhm.
stuff just kind of controlled like that. Uh, and the with that being the first game that you play, I love UFO 50 as just like an art piece, as just
Okay.
this big love letter to this time period of gaming, which is worthy what it is. It's such a passion project. It's so well done. I can't say enough good things about the collection as a whole, just as a concept. And for them to start it off like that, I mean, I saw critiques on Reddit and things like exactly what you said. Like, I hate that this is the first game in the collection because people will think, oh, the rest of the games are just like this, and bounce off it. But I'm like, well, they should have read that. This is a this is 50 games. If you play one and go, I'm done. I'm not going to try 49 other games. Then like what? Like what?
So I think the reason that it's frustrating is that I mean, well, I guess it's like what do you want out of the collection? I mean, it's a matter of what do you want out of the collection. I appreciate the art piece. I appreciate the conceit of everything, but I feel like if you go into that expecting, oh, this is just games. This is just games that are supposed to feel like games from the 80s, and I didn't like games from the 80s. And then you play the
Hmm.
first one, and it has a bunch of elements of those games that were bad and without redemption. Like I feel like other games in the collection, like there's a like if it makes you play the game over, if it makes you start from the beginning every time, then eventually you get to that like kind of that like I don't know what you call it, like that state that like state where you've got the level memorized and you're perfectly jumping and everything,
Sure.
and it's like a dance, like it's great, and that's a great feeling that you couldn't have if you just if you didn't lose progress or if you or everything, but Barbuda, like specifically, I feel like it is all the things that it is a bunch of things that people are afraid of, and then they play that and then they're like, oh, okay, that's as opposed to like what I want out of the collection. I mean, basically what I want out of the collection is either for it to feel like an old game while not actually feeling like an old game. Like feel like your memory of an old game. You know, the way like
Sure.
Sonic Mania or I would imagine Shovel Knight is like where it's like it actually isn't that, but it kind of but it pokes at that, or just like neat ideas.
Yeah. Well, I do think that Barbuda is better than a lot of people think it is, just
Mhm.
from a gameplay perspective. There's a lot of puzzles and things in there that are not incredibly obvious, and I appreciate that they don't hold your hand with it, because that's one thing that has frustrated me with games over the years. As somebody who has spent so much time playing games, it is kind of annoying when you pick up games nowadays and it's like, let's go over the tutorial of,
Right,
push
right,
this
right.
button. It's like, dude, come on. Like, I could figure this out. Like, let me know if there's something real weird that I need to be doing that I wouldn't have thought of. But like, I don't need to know to push A to jump.
Right,
Like,
right,
come on.
right. Or and
Uh,
then they'll use that to there will be tutorialization, and then also like they'll use that tutorialization as an excuse to have 100 different systems that you don't need. And
yeah,
like I was
right.
playing God of War from whatever it was, 2018, and like I got 5 hours into the game and I still was getting it, and it was still the tutorial. And I'm like, yeah,
Come
this is,
on, man.
you know, and that's like
Well,
considered, that's like a good one of those. Like that's not even, but just like constantly the
one,
game freezing and doing the thing. Now I will say games from the 80s normally came with a manual.
right, right. They
So
did.
you could get some of that information. And I will say, if you're playing UFO 50, the first thing you should do in every game, even if you think you know how to play it, is push pause and go to game controls, because sometimes the second button, sometimes your B button or X or whatever the second button's called, does something that is like kind of counterintuitive. And there were several games that I tried to get and I got very far in and then didn't realize that it had a double jump, or didn't realize that my guy could shoot or something like that. I still think with
So
Kit
Kendall,
Club that I haven't gotten. Yeah.
what I'm very curious to see. You had told me that you prepared a tier list
Okay.
of these games.
Yes. Yes.
I
Let's
want to
jump
see
into
it.
the tier list. Okay.
Let's do it.
So we'll start. So I did S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, and F tier. And you're probably going
All
to
right.
really disagree with some of my really low tiers because of what. And I will say, like, looking at this list and
Maybe,
like
maybe
making
not.
this list, it was like there's not like, this is on a curve to where
Sure.
if I was comparing it with all games ever made, then these F tier games would be at least C tier, like
Oh,
overall.
okay. Okay.
Like I think like, so just to kind of um
Sure.
so I've only played I've played 30 games. I ranked 26 of them. These are the 26 that I have made YouTube short videos of that are available on the Kendallcast YouTube. So these are the ones that I played enough that I felt like I could review them. So it's only
Okay.
so at F tier, I have
F tier.
these are the 3 games that I felt like were nigh unplayable.
Okay.
Planet Zoldath, which
Mm-hmm.
is a rogue. I don't even think it's a rogue like. It's like very, very rogue. You start at the beginning of the game and you're supposed to it completely randomizes everything, including which NPCs are good and bad. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just found it to be almost
You know
unplayable.
that. Yeah, it's not very fun. I will tell you that is one of my least favorites as well in the collection, and I don't think that that's a hot take. I think a lot of people were kind of turned off by that one. It's procedurally generated, which okay, but it feels like a lifeless, soulless Zelda
Yeah.
clone,
Yeah.
and
I
I
think
don't particularly enjoy it
I
either.
think if it communicated what the goal was a little more clearly, and also I really, really didn't like that that there's like 5 different NPC types, and every
Hmm.
run 2 of them are friendly, but it doesn't,
Right.
but it's not the same 2. I really, really didn't like that aspect. Then we have Mooncat. Mooncat is another notorious one where they just wanted to mess with you because they made it so that going forward, that going left and right is you push the buttons on the controller that are on the left side of the controller to go left, and the ones on the right side of the controller to go right. And yeah, that.
Yeah, no, this one is a hot take on your part because Mooncat is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
It's a really a cool game. You do have to get used to the idea, and that's kind of the gimmick of that game is
Mhm.
okay, but what if your controller is just two buttons like this, and so it
Problem is
forces
that
you to
my
kind of
controller has 8 buttons, and and my
well,
I think it would be different. I think it would be different if I actually had a controller with 2 buttons on it.
you need to get you one of these.
Yeah,
You need to get you one
but
of these.
it's not the right 2 buttons. It's not the right 2
You
buttons.
can change it. You can change it. There's
Well,
controller configurations that you can use
yeah,
in
I guess
UFO
so.
50.
If I did that, yeah, if I did that, then it would definitely be better. I played it just enough to realize that it's still kind of a punishing platformer. Um, and then
I think you should
the
give
other,
it another chance.
I probably will. That one I play of the ones I reviewed. I played the least. I only put 14 minutes into it, which is that's pretty bad. Yeah, and it's somebody commented on my YouTube video that it's a skill issue, and I'm like, it's called bad at video games. Like, I'll admit. And then Campanella, which there's like there's literally 4 different Campanella games in the collection. And it's like,
Hmm.
why did you decide to make this hard to control UFO game the centerpiece of like it's the UFO from the thing? It's like,
Hmm.
I don't know. I felt that one was pretty frustrating.
I quite like Campanella. I think the first one is my favorite. The second one is a Blaster Master clone, um, and the third one is a Star Fox clone.
Mhm.
The first one, um,
And then there's also the Big Bell
yeah,
Race, which is
right. The Big Bell Race is in there too, and yeah, no, I don't. Campanella is not one of my very favorite games from the collection. I would probably put that at a B or C tier
okay.
myself, but I do think it's a fun game. The controls are tight. You're in there and you're kind of maneuvering. It kind of reminds me of um so like maybe asteroids, like the way that you control it, and there's just a little bit of momentum, and then you have to kind of like keep jumping in that way. So
The
um,
other thing about Campanella is its gift condition is that you have to have 15 extra lives, which is like insane. Like I never had a net increase in lives when I
I
was
can see
playing
where
it.
that game would be really irritating if you were trying to cherry it or if you're trying to go through it, like because I haven't beaten that one yet. It does get pretty tough. So I can see that.
Yeah. And again, like I mean, and actually, Campanella is one that I keep going back to because I want to get the stupid item for my house, and it's like I've got like 20 items
That's
in my
funny.
house, so it's like of the games that I've played, it's one of the only ones. So D
Wow.
tier, we had I'm gonna run through these ones a little faster because I don't think it's as interesting. We had a tactics, which is
Hmm.
I think it's a tactic game that's on a grid and you have different units and stuff. I felt like of all of the tactics games that I played, which have been many of my favorites, just the one that was the least interesting.
Hmm.
We have Magic Garden, which is a mix of it's like a mix of Pac-Man and Snake. And I described it in my video as it was like if you got the Sega Smash Pack collection so that you could play Streets of Rage and Sonic, and it was like also on that. Like, it's not
Man,
terrible,
this
but it's
is
like
a hot take
another game.
because I think it's great. I think it's one of my favorite games in the
Okay.
collection, and it was the first game that I was like, wow, and I really just played it because it's such a pure, great '80s style arcade game. And you're going around, you're collecting these little dudes called oppies, but you control like Snake, and then what you have to do is get them to this path,
Mhm.
which it's like this little randomly pops up area that you have to guide the oppies in, and then you have to press the button, and then they clear, right? Or if you don't get them all onto the path and you press the button, they become the bad guys,
Mhm.
and the bad guys spawn, and um, it's tough. It's a tough game to master, but I think it's really good, and
Okay.
that soundtrack is fire.
So I will say, I'm not the biggest fan of 8-bit chip tunes. I mean, I like chip tunes and stuff, but I felt like a lot. I mean, I play a lot of these games on mute. Let's just say that. I mean, I listen to I put the music on long enough to be like, okay, I got this, but then I mute it and put on a podcast usually. So I didn't. I mean, I actually like the main theme.
Hmm.
That's like just the the menu screen. But yeah. I heard you're not the first person that I heard say the Magic Garden soundtrack. I think Magic Garden would be a B or a C for me if you didn't die in one hit, because
Okay.
you just die in one hit and then you have to start completely over from the beginning, and
Hmm.
that's that's rough. And then Big Bell Race is the spinoff of Campanella. I thought the controls were a little bit better, and also you die in 3 hits in that instead of 1 hit. But still very difficult to control. My only thought is that like they knew how hard it was to control the UFO in this game. So in all these games, so they made multiple games where you're playing that UFO so that you kind of get that feel, which I think was very smart of the designers. But also, it's like, why didn't you make a UFO with better controls? And then we also already talked about Barbuda. It's a D, not an F, because I acknowledge that like a lot of the problem with Barbuda is me. I kind of just don't have the patience for it.
Mm.
So jumping to C tier, these were the more either these were games where I really know the problem is me, or it would be a way better game if it was easier, or it's like kind of middle of the road. This is C tier. So Lords of Disconia and Devilition both are kind of tacticsy games that were solid. Lords of Disconia, you're shooting discs. All your units are discs. And then Devilition was a neat idea. That's the one where you do the chain reaction of like basically you're trying
Hmm.
to. It's a like a Final Fantasy Tactics type game where all your units have certain spots that do damage, and but you can only blow up one of them, and you have to use that to blow up all of them. It's a neat idea,
It
but
really reminded me of the Incredible Machine.
okay.
I don't know if you ever played that
No, I
on
haven't played
the
that.
DOS. Yeah,
It's
it's similar. I really like Demolition.
I I liked it. I liked it, but it was kind of like once I got to a certain point, I was like, okay, I got this. I can move on. As a C, it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, that's kind of where I would put it too. Is the C.
Um, so Velgris is a game where you're in a pit and you're trying to jump out of the pit. It's a very difficult platformer type game that like you die in 2 seconds. And I think this would be like a B or an A if I was good at video games. But because I'm
You
bad,
know,
it's real hard.
let me hop in with Velgris here. So
Mhm.
this game is kind of interesting to me because this is I mean UFO 50 designed or developed by the same people who brought us Downwell. And I don't
Okay.
know if you ever played Downwell,
No, I haven't.
but I absolutely adore Downwell, and I played it. I beat it at like nightmare mode,
Okay.
and that takes some serious dedication because it's not an easy game. And that whole game, you're falling down this well and you're shooting down and bouncing off enemies and things. So Velgris to me kind of felt like the inverse, right? Like you're going up this time, but it plays in a similar like quick way as Downwell. I don't like it as much as Downwell, but I do like Velgris a lot. But I'm also kind of pissed off at Velgris because I haven't beaten it yet. And I just before we started this podcast, I was playing Velgris for like an hour, and I only got to the third world.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
Well,
man,
I've gotten to level 20 is the furthest I've gotten on Velgris. It's one that I keep going back to though. So
yeah,
it's a good
yeah,
one to
it's
play
addictive.
for 2.5 minutes. And I like
Yeah.
that's something I haven't mentioned that like, and this is true. For years and years, when people have told me what is your favorite game on the Switch, I tell them my
hmm
favorite game is opening up the Switch online and spending 20 minutes trying to decide what game to play and then playing a game for 5 minutes. And that's what the UFO 50 collection is it's this curated collection of really good games, and you can just be like, look, you can find, because it's not even about necessarily what's the best game or what's, but it's like, what is the game that I'm in the mood for.
Sure.
And so like, so I really like, so like Velgris, what it has in its favor, it's like, it's impossible. I don't think I'll ever probably beat it. You have to get 2 keys to get the household item, and I need to get the second key. But what it has in its favor is, even though you die really fast, it also loads back up really fast. So
Yeah,
you just
it does.
die. You play it. Yeah, you play for 2.5 minutes. You die 5 times. And then tomorrow you play for 2.5 minutes and you die 4 times, and maybe you make it one more level or whatever. Then we had Fist Hell, which is a fine beat 'em up. But I didn't. This one's just a C because I didn't feel like it brought anything new to the table. Like it was just
hmm
one of those, which I've played a million beat 'em ups, and also like it's not even like that's a genre. Like for years and years, they just didn't make beat 'em ups. Now they even make new games that are beat 'em ups that are like the best. They have the Ninja Turtles games. There's a G.I. Joe beat 'em up that just came out. I haven't played it yet, but like there's it's not something that we needed necessarily another one of, except for that this collection like probably needed one. But I would have liked if there was some twist to it that made it unique.
Yeah, this one is one that I probably would have ranked it lower than a C. I would put this at a D in the tier list because beat 'em ups are just not my thing. I don't especially enjoy the genre, but yeah.
Also, if you watch my video of Fist Hell, I had accidentally turned the green screen filter on my capture device, so everything that should be green is black. So
Nice.
so the video looks weird. There's about like 5 or 6 videos that have at least parts of it that have that in that. Yeah, the other thing is with this UFO 50 collection, I learned how to do. I was like, I want to do something, and I was like, okay, well, I can do 1-minute reviews of every game, and do it as a shorts, because everybody been telling me like if you do shorts on YouTube, you'll get more views, and so I learned how to make shorts. They have to be like a certain format and less than a minute long and stuff. So, some of the videos are a little janky because I'm still, learning how to.
You're in your Barbuda era.
I'm in my Barbuda era, yeah. Okay, so next one is one that I actually it would be a tier if I was better at it. Is Onion Delivery. So Onion Delivery is one that like I played it for like an hour and I hated it. And then I kept coming back to it, and I'm still so bad at it, and it's still so frustrating. But it's design, but the way it looks and the like everything is also so charming. And you just golded it, right? So what are your thoughts on Onion Delivery? I'm really curious.
Oh man, I hate to say it, but honestly, Onion Delivery might be my favorite game in the collection, and that is a hot take because it controls terribly, right? Like there's no doubt about it. That's the gimmick of the game. Is it's initially just so like, what is happening? Like you're trying to control it, you're crashing into everything, and
It
you're like,
it
a lot of
makes your
people.
car go the wrong direction, like, almost every time. It's like you go right to drop off your onions, and then
Hmm.
the car goes to the left. It's like, for those listening, it looks like one of the the 2D Grand Theft Auto games, and your job is to drive around this town to and deliver onions, and the controls are really janky. You have to turn it's right and left as if the car is going. It's not like turning in the direction of the thing. So if your car is going down, then you have to hit left in order to go right on the screen. And it is
And so
it's wild.
I can give you a few strategy tips, Kendall, on
Okay.
onion delivery, because there's some strat to
I
this,
just need
right?
to get
This
through the
game.
first two worlds. If I can get through the first two worlds, I can get the item. So
Oh, okay. Well, that should be very doable, because yeah, it's so here's my tips for
okay.
how to get through onion delivery. One, the if you're looking to the first strategy tip is you can hit both buttons at once, and like you can kind of swerve, right? So getting used to that is kind of a thing. But if you hit both of those buttons and uh, at the
What
same time, you can kind
which
of
both which buttons? The direction buttons or the
well,
action
no,
buttons?
the action buttons, right?
Okay.
So there's kind of like a drift that you can do,
Okay.
right? Once I found that out, I was like, oh, that's huge, because you can turn around on a dime if
Okay.
you get good at it. You can figure that out. Another thing is you can kind of tap the directional button to change lanes, sort of. So you can end up
Oh, okay.
kind of slowly going in between your lanes.
That's huge because the one of the hard parts is that there's cars that you run into.
Right. You can only do that when you're still accelerating those.
Okay.
So another thing is you have 3 lives each run, right? Um, so the lives replenish in 2 ways. You can either get your onion delivered, which will give you a refill of lives, or if you go fast for a long
Mhm.
period of time, you'll slowly replenish
Yeah.
your onion. That is huge to know, because there's times when it's like you have to just go out of your way just to replenish real quick, so that you can turn around and go back the other way and make your delivery. Another
And
thing
I
I didn't realize.
yeah, that's something I mean I looked up tips or whatever, but that's one that jumped out at me, and that made the
Mhm.
game that makes the game that's huge. That makes the game almost playable. And it also is really good game design
Yeah,
because driving fast is fun. And like
yes, it is
that's
fun. When you get to the point where you're getting good at it, then it's like, oh, okay, like you can do this. But to get the gold on it, my tip for everyone is you need to learn the town. There's no way around it. When you're making deliveries, pay attention to where those deliveries are going. It'll tell you the name of the building, and you'll find that if you start keeping them in mind, start kind of keeping track of it in your head, that you start to build like a map in your own mind of like,
yeah.
okay, so this is going to the bakery. That's real close to the onion shop. So this one's going to be easy. This is at the cemetery is to the east and northeast of the onion shop. You start going in the right direction,
The park
and
is
it
right
makes
down
things
south. The storage
right.
place is to the northwest kind of a little
Southwest.
bit, yeah.
Well, the central storage, and then there's also like the
It's like
cheap
cheap
storage.
storage, yeah.
Yeah, cheap storage is southeast, and then the other one is like, no, I got them mixed up. The cheap storage is the one that you're talking about, and the central storage is the one in the southeast. But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, you start to get there, right? So, and I
Because the
think that
map's not that big. So that's the good thing about me being bad at it is I definitely have started to memorize where things are. It's just a matter of being able to get there. Um,
yeah, yeah.
so the next one that's on my C, and this is another one that probably would be a little higher if I was a little better at it. Is one that I think you showed me you cherried it is Ninpak. This is
Oh
a
yeah, yeah.
sort of run and gun run and gun your ninja star guy that is trying to retrieve your stolen sandwich. And
Yeah, like a tentacle monster steals your hamburger. So good.
I definitely liked this one. But it just kind of but it was just like it was one that I just kind of got to a point where I just kept, you just keep dying. It's all, I think the whole game one level. So if you die, you have to start from or if you run out of lives, you have to start from the beginning every
Right.
time.
If you run out of lives, you are starting from the beginning. Yes. I will say this game is not particularly long. And once you kind of, I'll tell you what got me this one. When I changed my controller um, to an NES USB controller
Mm-hmm.
and kind of remapped the buttons to be more like what I would expect, the fire button being the NES B button on the controller and the A button being jump. That's just so more traditional than um and as soon as I did that, I was like, oh wow, yeah, this is going to be so much easier for me. And then it took me like a couple hours, and then I blew through it. And I'll tell you, the cherrying it was kind of, I wasn't even expecting to, honestly. Like I was excited when you beat the main boss at the end for the first time. It's like, oh cool, I was like, yeah, I beat it. And then it was like, oh, now you get to redo that game again, and with harder enemies. And I was like, what? Like, how hard is it? And I actually just kept playing, and I just blew through it the second
Nice,
time, and it's like,
nice.
oh. So when you
So
get to the point where you can do that, that's a pretty easy one, Gary.
the part that I can get to, and I'm curious how close I am to the end, is there's a bunch of cherries that
Hmm.
I pick up. Like, how close am I to the end when I get there?
I would kind of say that the game is divided into kind of like 4 areas, if
Okay.
you will. And the cherry is the first time you encounter that, I feel like that's the bridge between the first and second
Okay.
worlds.
Okay, so I'm
And then
nowhere
there's
near.
another one.
Okay.
There's another series of cherries that comes
Yeah.
up that
Okay.
divides.
Yeah. I didn't know if because sometimes you play these because that's the thing about these games is you don't know if it's a 20-minute experience or if it's a 10-hour experience. So like I get those
Right.
like that feels like it's a transition into something, but I can't tell if it's a
Hmm.
transition into the end game or getting past essentially the first level. And it sounds like I'm just getting past the first level. So as you can
My
tell, I'm
tips for
bad at
this
video
one.
games. Yeah.
No, it's all right though. My tip is uh be aggressive in impact. Like, you want to
Okay.
kill as many of them as possible and get those things, because the the burgers will pop up as a result of that, and you get 1-ups
Okay.
based on the points that you have. And
Mhm.
that's crucial for surviving the games, that you want to get those 1-ups.
Yeah.
So I would say play it aggressively, and that'll help you a lot.
Okay. And then the last C is Caramel, which is a shmup. It seemed like a pretty straightforward shmup, except for you can take
Hmm.
pictures with a Polaroid camera. Um, I really enjoyed my time with it, except for that I could not even I got like halfway through the first level in an hour. And I just like I'm gonna keep coming back to it and stuff, but like you start with 0 lives. Like
Right.
it proudly shows like extra lives 0, and you have to start. So you start from the beginning every time, and it's just like I said, like shmups are really hard. I will say Caramel. My experience with it, if I wasn't trying to review a game a day, I would have probably like spent a week with it and gotten really good at it. It felt the most like Cuphead in a good way of any
Mhm.
of the games that I've played in the collection.
I like the aesthetic. I think it's funny that you're like on a snack planet, and
Yeah.
taking pictures is a very random mechanic, because you're also like a fish, I think, in Caramel, right? Like, so it's
Well,
like,
and
I'm a
that's
fish taking pictures on Snack Planet. Sounds
yeah,
like I'm doing drugs.
yeah. It seemed like that's one of those things where it's like it wasn't clear what am I supposed to do because like I played through the tutorial and I didn't shoot once. I only took pictures. And then
Hmm.
I started playing, and I was like, I can't just be taking pictures the whole time, like, because I'll die. And then I'm shooting, and then I'm like, and I'm like, okay, and then I'm like, then I'm not taking pictures at all, and
Right.
so yeah, I don't know, it just
I
it
kind of would put this in C tier. I agree with you on this one. I think
I have
it's a little harder than some of the other ones.
uh-huh. Yeah, I have a feeling like if it clicks with me I would raise it up a little bit, and I'm glad it's there. Like, I'm glad that there's a straight ahead. This is one of those, just like, I mean, that's why it's C, just like Vistel, like, where it's like, I'm glad that there's one of these
Sure.
that represented, and I think there's a few of them represented. So we'll jump up to B tier. These were games that I really liked, but were either, three of them were a little bit too hard, and one of them was a little bit too easy. So
Okay.
first of all, we have Camouflage. This is a puzzle game where
Mhm.
you're a chameleon, and you can change the color of your chameleon to the square that you're on, and you want to, and there's predators, and you, if they can see you, or if you're on a square that they can see, you want to be the color of that square so that they don't eat you. And I thought this was pretty charming. It was a little, like, the art style was a little janky, almost in the way that it actually looked like a Nintendo game. Like, a lot of these games, I think, the art's a little too good for Nintendo. But also I played it after having, like, spent like 5 hours on the last level of Rock On Island, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So I was very happy to play, like, a very simple, kind of
Sure.
relaxing game.
Yeah, I think I would rate this one a little lower. It's not one of my favorites. I think it's kind of okay. Um,
Mhm.
but I have only gotten to like maybe the fourth world on it. I
Okay.
haven't spent too much time on Camouflage, so but I think it's perfectly fine. Like I don't think it's a bad game. It's just like kind of not one I'm like super
Right.
excited about.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's a low B. But
Hmm.
I put it at B because it hit me at just the right time.
Sure, I get it.
And again, that's what this collection is all about. It's about finding the right game for the mood that you're in, finding the right game for your
Yeah,
taste. Like, that's the thing, is like, you can bounce off of like 5 games in a row, and then one of them will click with you. And then that
sure.
game just by itself is worth the $25 that you spent. But then you've got 49
Yeah,
other
yeah,
games that are all bonuses. Maybe not
yeah, yeah.
$25, but like, if you could find 5 games from the collection that you like, then it
Sure,
would
sure.
definitely be
You
worth
will.
it.
Yeah.
Um, so then we have Mortal, which is the game where it's a platformer where your guys that you play as die, and it helps like, you turn into a rock so that it helps you platform a little bit more and stuff. And I really liked the mechanic. Uh, it was just like, it was clever. It was like no game that I've ever played before, but also, and not like punishingly difficult, but just like 10% too hard. So I keep coming back to it, and I just, I'll eventually get good at it, but I liked
I
it a
think
lot.
this is one of the best games in the collection. From a just like originality standpoint, I guess the closest game I can think of that does something similar is Lemmings, maybe, where
I've
you're
heard that
turning
comparison.
dudes. Yeah, but I played this and was like, wow, this game is great. And then I've probably not really done too much. I haven't really been playing it because I've wasted too much time on some of the other
Well,
ones.
that's what I mean,
But
is like, it's a really cool idea. It's a really cool concept. Like,
right,
it's like, it's
right,
probably the best. It may be the best concept of all the games in the whole collection. It's just that I
right.
got to like, it's like I keep hitting points where I just can't get past it, and then eventually
Hmm.
I put time into it and I get past it. But like, it's just sort of
Yeah, yeah.
it's just, if I was better at video games, it would be an S tier. But it, but yeah, but it's a really cool, like, it sells the collection. I think it does. Like, if this was
Yeah.
the game one, if this was Barbuda, then
Hmm.
like that would be like, this is the Super Mario world, or the Super Mario Brothers of the collection. I think it sells, even if it's even if it's not the best game in the collection, like it's the reason to buy it's one of the reasons to buy the collection.
Okay. Okay.
And then so then we had pin golf, which was fun. It is exactly what it sounds like, a mix between pinball and golf. This was the game that I did not realize that you can like do like a boost on the ball. And I played for like a good 3 or 4 hours before I found out you could do a boost on the ball.
Wait a minute. You can do a boost on the ball?
Yeah.
Tell me more, Kendall.
I mean, it's sort of, yeah, I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. So like it shoots it down to bounce. So like if you're going over like a long, if you're shooting it over like a water trap, sometimes there'll be like a little platform in the middle, and you shoot it over, you push the button and it bounces off of that.
Right.
Also, there will be like little corners and obstacles and things, so that if you bounce it and you hit that obstacle on certain holes, that it's like a little bit counterintuitive, but like the level telegraphs, then it will, shoot the ball all the way into the hole from like halfway across the screen. And it's really neat. It just took a little bit too long to figure that out. And it doesn't, unless you check the controls or watch the attract mode.
Okay.
Then
I'll have to double check that, because I am god awful at pin golf. And boy, have I been trying to get the gold on this. And like my best scores are incredibly embarrassing.
Yeah, oh yeah.
My friend James was like, I got 11. And I was like, 11? You got 11? I was like, my best was like 28. Like, dude, what am I doing wrong? So this is one that I could have used some tips for.
Yeah.
But I still enjoy it.
Yeah, I would say the two things are, first of all, use your boost. If you're shooting it over water, you can skip it like you would skip a pebble.
I knew about that.
So that helps in certain holes. And then like if you're looking and there's like if there's like a little bouncer in the corner of the hole or something, a lot of that stuff is there for a reason. So sometimes just like shoot it straight up into a corner and see what happens. And a lot of times it'll go boom, 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 and then in the hole.
So that, you know what it is for me is the hole with the shrimps that jump out of the water. That hole kills my score every time.
I think
it's like,
I think I know which one you're talking about, and I think I agree. That one's really rough. Some of them are still really rough. The other thing is with the bounce, you can use it like if you overshoot. So like if you some of the holes you go past, if you're like going and you're going to go past the hole, like right as you're going past the hole, you can bounce it and it'll bounce into the hole and you get it. And sometimes that saves you a couple of swings. So, I liked it. I think the biggest issue with it is that it's freaking 18 holes. So if you screw up a run, that's long.
Yeah.
That's a long run.
Yeah.
If it was 9 holes, or if it was if it was broken up into especially if it was broken up into 3 holes and then 3 more holes and then 3 more holes, and it just kept your best score of each one or something like that, I think it would be probably like A tier, but I did like it. And then the game that sold the collection for me was Kit Club. This was because I played Barbuda for 2 minutes, and I had listened to multiple podcasts before I even started playing the game. So I knew that Barbuda was going to be rough. So I played it for 2 minutes and I was like, yeah, that's right. It's rough. I did the thing where you take one step and the stuff falls on you, which I knew was going to happen because that's the first thing people tell you about it. But so I was like, nah. And then I played Kit Club and I was like, this is a game that if it had come out in the 80s would have been Pac-Man. It would have been super it would be iconic. Or if not Pac-Man, it would have been like Breakout or something. It would have been, so you're basically a dude that's running around with a soccer ball and hitting enemies with a soccer ball on these levels. They're kind of the levels kind of look like the original Mario Brothers. Maybe the original Mario Brothers is a better comparison. But
Kendall, I think you've missed the pretty obvious comparisons on
oh
here,
okay.
and this might be because just because of your video game background, right? But
Mm-hmm.
this game is straight up referencing Bubble Bobble and Snow
Oh,
Brothers,
okay.
and Snow Brothers being kind of a deeper cut on the NES, where you had these snowmen that would fire snow at enemies and turn them into snowballs, which you would then kick around to hit the other enemies. And Bubble Bobble, that was an arcade classic. You got the little
I've
dragons
heard of
that
it.
could
Yeah.
blow the bubbles, and then you would kick them off. So those are the games that Kick Club is definitely like
Okay.
referencing. I haven't
Well,
spent
and
that
those are
much
good,
time
and
with
those are
this one
games that
actually.
people have heard of. So I guess I was right.
Yeah.
It's just
I thought it was fun. I
yeah.
just didn't I didn't go too deep into it because I was like, okay, that's what this is, and
Mhm.
kind of moved on. But I keep meaning to come back to it. But there's so many
Well,
games in this
maybe
collection.
there's so many games in the collection, and I mean, I'm not even saying like just like Mortal is. I mean, this is B tier. Like, I'm not saying it's the best, but
Yeah.
it's the game that sold the collection. It's the game that because it felt like a fully formed game, like the
Yeah.
kind of thing that would be that in it. And I mean, even if it's a clone of something from then, in 1980 whatever or 1990 whatever, you would have paid $60 for this game or $40 or however much games cost. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's good. Good all
Like,
around fun. I was
like it
enjoying it.
just was. Yeah, it's a fully formed game. The other reason that it's a B and not an A or an S is that I just got the freaking household item from it because you have to beat the first 2 worlds. And this is one of those games that's like it's like a Mario Brothers or whatever, where like probably 90% of the people that play it will only get through the first world.
Mhm.
It's not. I mean, it's not like punishingly difficult, and the worlds are nice and long and stuff. But like it's kind of like you play it until you're done. Like you're not necessarily going to play it.
Yeah.
For just to you're not necessarily going to 100% the game. It has boss fights though, and at the end of each world, and the boss fights are kind of fun.
I
They're
haven't
kind
even
of
gotten
neat.
that far yet, so I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to it now.
yeah. So A tier. So these are great. These are great games. I'm kind of questioning 2 of my choices on here as why they're A tier, but I guess they're not S tier, and they I don't know, probably because Camouflage is B tier, and these games are better than Camouflage. So, so we had Waldorf's Journey, which is you're a flying walrus in a dream, and it's like a golf game.
Yeah. So this is one where my friend Nathan was like, "Man, I really love Waldorf's Journey." I kind of bounced off this one, but and I've come back to it a few times and have been like, "Okay, maybe there's something here that but I haven't gotten the bug for this one yet.
Mhm.
The golf thing is weird. I do like that it's a walrus, but this game gives me big anxiety because it always feels like, okay, I'm launching into some area I have no idea what's going to happen, and then like I'm like, oh crap, I overshot it, and then I'm like trying to
Yeah,
fly with the
yeah.
walrus, and then I end up just falling in the pit. I'm like, oh, I died again.
Yeah, I think my tips for the game is well, first of all, the puffins. If you land on a platform with a puffin, it flies,
Right,
or it
right,
gives you an extra life. Um, Second of all, you can like energy is everything. So because you have a limited amount of energy for flying. So get the little fish, and then if you go to a merchant, buy the thing that restores your energy. Um, if I was better at video games, there's a grappling hook that you can buy from the merchant. It's really good as long as you can actually aim correctly and not miss with it. And then
okay,
also like just like you're talking about like the like just like jumping out into the in super far. Just make a lot of small jumps. Uh,
yeah,
A lot of it is just like trying to get it from here to here. Sometimes you can do the far ones. And the weather is really hard to deal with, so watch out for that. But I sort of this was another one where I think it's an A tier because I woke up. This was a night that I was super tired. I crashed at like 6:30 in the evening, and then woke up at 2 a.m. and loaded it up. And it is just like the perfect like fever dream of a game to play from 2 a.m. until 4 a.m. And then
Did you gold this one?
And I did gold this one, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Great.
because it's also super short.
Okay.
And
Well, maybe I'll give this another shot because I see that there's something there with this one. I haven't gotten there yet. You know,
and it doesn't I felt like it didn't overstay its welcome. Like it doesn't need to be any longer than it is. Like I felt like the problem with Camouflage was that it might have been a little too short. It could have been a little more in depth. This was like just the right amount of complexity. It's very much a gimmicky game, but like all the gimmicks work, and it's just yeah. So similar to Waldorf's Journey, we have Block Koala, which is a game where you're a koala cleaning up a park by pushing around blocks with numbers on them, and it's just a pretty straightforward puzzle game. And probably Camouflage should have been C, and Block Koala should have been B tier if I'm really relitigating my list. But
Block Koala reminds me of Lolo, right? The Adventures of Lolo on NES, or any number of other kind of similar puzzle games from that time. It is a game that I started playing. I was like, oh, it's Lolo, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a time sink, right? This is going to be a thing that I'm going to have to spend a little bit of time. And I kind of immediately went, okay, this looks like fun. I'm going to have to come back to this though, and let me check out some of the other titles first. And today, actually, before this podcast, I started playing it again, and I was like, yeah, you know what? This is pretty good. I'm having fun with it.
I will say the gift condition is a post game gift condition. You have to beat one of the custom levels that don't unlock until after you beat the game, which is kind of.
So I'm going to say something really embarrassing, but I did not know about the garden until literally this morning. I had no idea that there was a garden in there, and it took me forever before I even knew that you could look up the details of the games on the main menu screen.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that until I went over to James's and he was showing me that. I was like, well, you can do that? I didn't know that. And then it shows you the conditions to get this stuff. I was like, man, I was a little late on picking that up. And so I didn't realize what it meant with the house thing until today when I saw the garden in there. And I was like, oh, man.
Well, now, and then you get to look at your house and all the stuff that's in it or lack thereof.
Yeah.
I just really like that that for a lot of the games, there's like there's a thing to shoot for that is not beating the game. And I especially liked, that's one thing that, for they're F tier, but Planet Zoldath and Mooncat, super easy to get the gift. Like, and for those games that are, and same thing with Barbuda, you have to unlock 25 rooms, which is not that hard. So it's like, we want you to, we want to give you a reason to give these games enough time to decide whether you like them or not. And then we'll give you your gift. And if you don't like them, you can move on to the next thing, especially if you're not like, I'm not like a completionist or anything, but I do like, I like having goals.
Sure.
I think Block Koala also, I'm going to sink a bunch of time into, sometimes I will have a video game loaded up. I work in a call center environment. When I'm working from home, I'll have a video game loaded up in between calls, and something that's not time sensitive and like puzzly and stuff is about perfect for that.
Yeah.
Also, Block Koala and Camouflage both have an undo mechanic, which is really nice.
You can save it. That's great.
And they save your progress, which I think is really nice. Like, because for games that don't need like, I can understand why some of the twitchy games want you to start from the beginning every time, although I think that some of them would,
Mhm.
like, it's a little long and a little punishing. But I understand that, like, they're trying to get you to memorize those early levels for that
Sure.
state or whatever. But yeah, I like Block Koala a lot. And then the rest of these actually should all probably be S tier, but they're all these are my favorites. So Bushido Ball is a Pong mixed with fighting game, and it was great. It was a challenge at first, but then I kind of figured out how to get some of the special moves and some of the good strategies and stuff, and just really, it's a really neat game. It's another game that I think sells the collection really well.
Yeah, it's like a Windjammers clone, and it has yeah. Well, this is a very deep cut, but the first game that I thought of was Pong Combat, which is like a DOS game that some kid programmed back in the 80s that was a mix of Mortal Kombat and Pong. And but I am garbage at Bushido Ball and have not really spent too much time with it. But my friend James was like destroying in it. I was like, okay, man. So
All right, and then yeah. It took a little while for it to click for me. But that was a good one because it was like you have to win 3 matches to get your household item, and winning
I
one
haven't
match
even done
is
that. I haven't even beaten more than one guy. I'm so bad at
yeah,
that game.
yeah.
Like, how?
Beating one guy is pretty doable. Beating 2 guys is pretty rough. You pretty much have to know how to play the game in order to beat the 3rd guy. My tip on that one is hit your opponent. Like, just sometimes you can just run up to your opponent and just hit them.
Okay.
Like as the ball's
Yeah.
going towards them, you get a
Hmm.
penalty, but you have to get 3 penalties before anything bad happens. So you can just like run up and hit
Okay.
your opponent, and
Sure.
then they'll miss it, and it's like a free point.
Nice.
Also lower the score because it defaults to 8. If you go down to 4, you can you just go through more games, and you get
Oh, you
unlimited
can just cheat.
continues.
Nice.
So you beat the first guy, and then it's easier to get, like, if you're on a streak, it's easier to get to 4 than to get to 8, even no matter
Nice.
what. So you just, because you only have to beat them each once, unless you're trying to cherry, which is beating the whole game without any continues. So then this is probably a hot take because I think that I like it more than other people, is Paint Chase.
Hmm.
This is where you're a race car driving around a track trying to paint it blue while your opponent, or while the computer's trying to paint it red. And
Yeah.
this was just another one that just like really sold the collection for me.
I like this game too. It's Splatoon, right? It's basically Splatoon if Splatoon had a racing element, sort
Right.
of. Um, so yeah, I definitely like Paint Chase a lot.
Yeah. My only issue with it is you get a limited number of lives. I wish you had unlimited lives, or like or continues or something, so that if you ran out of lives, you didn't have to start all the way back at the beginning, because there's 25 levels.
Yeah.
And I think I've gotten to like level 16.
Okay.
But the thing, I mean, I'm bad at it. I don't think I'm good at it. So my tips on it are take with a grain of salt. But I think one thing to remember that I think maybe is important is it's not a matter of it. It doesn't base whether you succeed in a level on how much is yours is blue versus how much is theirs is red. It's just the percentage of the field that is blue. So there's some levels where like where I had like almost no red on the whole thing because I was focusing on killing enemies and then covering up their tracks. And I still lost because there was
Right.
like
Because
a quarter of the
you need to
track that
have it.
just nobody had painted. So make sure you're always
Sure.
painting there. And then I think it's pretty self-explanatory that you want to kill the enemies, because
Right. Before they can spread
before
the
they can start painting.
red paint
You want to
everywhere.
kill enemies as fast as you can. But I liked it a lot. I wish it was just a little that it would be S tier if it was not if it was like 15 levels. I think it would be S tier. Like it wouldn't even necessarily have to be have to have the continues and stuff. Like it just needed if I had beaten it, it would be S tier. If I was, you know, okay. So then here's my last four. Which like I said, these shows either go 30 minutes or 2 hours. So we're at about an hour and a half. So not too bad.
Editing.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I don't know. It's been audio gold this whole time. So,
Nice.
so Bug Hunter was the first game that I golded. This is a little strategy tactics game on a board. It's almost like a deck builder, where you have different actions that you can take to clear the board. You have to kill a certain number of bugs in a certain amount of time, and also not let them evolve into eggs and hatch.
I'm actually impressed with your gold on this because I haven't even beaten the first level of this. But of course you regularly trounce me at Star Wars, so I guess I'm not surprised that you got the tactical mind. But yeah, I actually really like this one. Even though I'm garbage at it, I think it's a pretty fun puzzle, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the biggest things on this are one, you can. So when you get there's little energy units that you can use to spend on like upgrades. It's not as important which upgrades you use as it is just to use those upgrades as opportunities to get one more move. So like you would like if you want to upgrade your move, then you'll trade it in for a move that you've already used. And then you get one more move on that turn or attack or whatever. And then there's a bunch of gimmicks depending on what things you get access to. There's one of my favorite one, and I think I've only pulled this off like once. There's an action that you can play that wherever your character moves to, it kills the unit on that square. And
that
then
sounds very helpful.
So then you have that one, and then just all the rest of your moves or all the rest of your actions, you upgrade those to movement. So you're just jumping all over the board and just killing everything.
That's a great combo. Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, but it took me, I'd say it took me like 2 hours to beat the first level. And then I looked up some tips and stuff. I actually didn't realize that there was more levels after the first level. But I think there's like 6.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to it. I put some time into it. But it was the first game that I feel like I kind of, even though I was already sold, I think it was like the second or third game that I played overall. Even though I was already sold on the collection, it
how did
was
you
the first game
choose?
I fell in love with.
How did you choose which ones to go through?
What do you mean?
So when I
which games
when I
to
first
play?
booted up UFO 50, what I did was I just went through them in chronological order, like one by one.
So I basically, I mean I'm doing like a mix. I specifically don't want to do chronological order. I'm mostly doing random, but also I've done the first 20 games. So, and of the 30 that I've played. So like I'm jumping around, but like when I see a line that's almost full, like I'm going to fill in that line. Like I think I've done 1, 11, 21, 31, and 41. So that like that whole line is done. But yeah, I'm just trying to do it like pretty randomly. And then also like if there's a game that I like, something like Campanella 2 is not on the list because I played it for like 5 minutes and bounced off, and I'm going to come back to this. Night.
Sure.
What is it? Night Manor is not on the list
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like that game, it was important for me to finish it before I judge it, because it's
Mm-hmm.
a point and click, and I feel like the ending for a game like that is kind of important. But yeah, I just kind of bounced around, but tended to favor the early ones first. I did open up the is it Zoldath 2? Or the
Yeah.
one that's the
Sold out
sequel
too.
to Zoldath that is like it's always running in the background when you play it. I did get that one set up so that I have all my resources with it, and I keep jumping back to it, but again, I haven't gotten far enough in it to feel like I can give it a real judgment.
Okay.
So last three S tier games. We had Avianos, which was another. You
Mm.
can tell I like the strategy games.
Yeah.
This one was like it's almost like, it almost has like Risk vibes. Like you build
Risk.
up
Huh?
your armies, and you're trying to take over castles on these squares. I really liked and you pray to different dinosaur gods. Like, you're birds, but your gods are dinosaurs, which is kind of cool. And you have like these, like, it's like an automated battle when you run it, when your forces run up against their forces, but you have like a little bit of control. Also, this
I
one's
really
the only
like
one that
this
I've
one.
cherried.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I need to go through it. I really like this game. This is my favorite of like the strategy games in this collection. And it took a little bit to understand what was going on. But once I did, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I like this one.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm with you. I probably wouldn't put it as an S tier in one of mine, but it is, I think, a really fun game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said it was your favorite of the strategy games, and for me, the strategy
Yeah,
games are my favorite part of the collection. So,
yeah.
so that's why it's
I get it.
up there.
I get it.
Also, it was easy to cherry. Like, it
What do you
was
have to do to cherry?
you just have to beat all the levels.
Oh, okay.
You get gold by doing, there's like beginner, there's like novice, moderate, and adult, or something like that. I forget what there's like
Yeah.
three difficulties that you play just regularly, and then there's 5 scenarios where basically your opponent gets to cheat. Like, they
Oh,
start with
great.
2 castles, or they get favor, because you do things to get favor with the gods to upgrade the
Right.
different things. They'll start with stuff upgraded, which, like, if you compare the way that one handled it to the way that a Tactics handled it, because the
Hmm.
Tactics also had scenarios where your opponent gets to cheat. With a Tactics, it really felt like cheating. Like a Tactics, in this one, your opponent gets 150% of the units that you get. And it is like, so we're not playing that. Then I'm not playing the same game,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
just sort of like, it just felt like it was like, with Avianos, it felt like the scenarios were, even though your opponent was still cheating, like, they were crafted, whereas a Tactics, it felt like they just kind of turned a dial to make it
Right.
more.
Yeah. I
Um,
see what you're saying.
but yeah, really, really enjoy, and like the aesthetic of the birds and the dinosaurs, and
Yes. The art is cool. I really like the Rex. Like, yeah, it's a fun game.
and then we have Rail Heist, who's also S tier.
Oh
This
yeah.
is
Real Heist rules.
like, you're in a western. It's like it's almost like a stealth game,
Yeah,
like
it
where
is.
you're
It is a stealth game.
trying to fight sneak around a train and steal
Hmm.
steal the gold, and you've got like 2 bullets, and it's this like mix of puzzle and stealth, which are 2 of my favorite my favorite types of games, and it's just a really clever concept. I haven't golded it yet, but it's also the first game in the collection that I played that had that saved your game. Like, so
Yeah.
like I can
You're
just
like,
come
oh,
back
this
to
can
it.
happen.
Yeah, I can just come back
Yeah.
to it and just play like one heist and then
Right.
leave.
It's
But
good for your call center. Yeah.
yeah. Or just to start a play session by playing
Yeah.
one heist and then going and playing something else, and you never lose progress. And you can go back and play the earlier missions for better scores, or I think there's like achievements like finishing without killing anybody, or I know that I usually kill everybody. Just because it's like I got that brick. If there's a brick and there's a guy standing in front of me, I'm gonna hit you with the brick.
No.
Which is also funny because that's not usually how I play those kinds of games in modern games. Like when I play like a modern stealth game, I want to kill as few people as possible because I'm like immersed
Yeah.
in the
You're
story or
trying to.
whatever. But in this, it's just a silliness.
It's like you're just some pixels. You don't matter.
And there's a dynamite. You blow
Yeah.
up little parts of the train, and I don't know. It's just
I love this one. I think it's great. I think it's one of the ones that I definitely think you could justify buying the collection just for this and a few others.
Yeah, and it's like I like that it's because the difference between, and this is like where it's like modern game design versus classic game design. Like classic game, if this game came out in the 80s, there would be exactly one way to beat each level.
Right.
And now, and the way that this game is designed now, like there's a dozen different ways to beat each level, or at least it feels that way. I haven't.
Yeah, and it's not like stealth games are not something I think of as being like something you saw a lot of in the 80s. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Yeah, maybe a few, but it's cool to see it imagined in that style.
Right. Exactly. And the final game that I wanted to talk about that's S tier, and this one, if I had not beaten it, would be probably B tier. But because I beat it, it feels like one of the best accomplishments that I've made in gaming in my life. Is Rock On Island. This is it's like a tower defense, I guess would be the best way of describing it. And it used to be that humans and dinosaurs got along, and now humans and dinosaurs don't get along. So you hire a bunch of cavemen to defend your base, and you roast chickens, and it was just, I probably spent 15 hours on this game.
Oh man. Yeah, so
like
this
7
is
of them on the last level.
Have you played Bloons?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so this game is Bloons, right? Which is I mean it's almost a straight kind of ripoff of that game. And I have not really spent that much time with Rock On Island. Actually, that's one I was like, oh, it's Bloons. Okay, I'll come back to this one. And that was kind of my response to it, because I wasn't the biggest fan of Bloons, but I did actually play it before we started talking today. I was playing that earlier today, and I was like, yeah, you know what, this is pretty fun. Like, but I'm garbage at it. That's why I stopped, because I'm so bad at strategy games in general, which is funny. I play board games all the time. I'm just eyeball deep in that world, and I'm just so bad at them. And I can statistically prove how bad I am because I track each play with this app. And I was looking at it, I was like, oh, cool. I have like a 24% win rate, and I've played like so many games.
Okay.
So yeah.
So I've got so many tips for this game. So this is the reason to tune into this podcast, for the Rock On Island tips. Okay.
Excellent.
So first of all, just in general, like your chickens are key. So in any level,
really?
You want to, as soon on some of the earlier levels, you can just like take all the damage and spend all your resources on chickens. because
Really?
you want to
Okay.
get so first of all, always put 2 bonfires next to every chicken and like lay them out,
Okay.
efficiently, so you can do like a 2x2 and do like bonfire chicken bonfire, so that both of them, because if the chicken is by 2 bonfires, it cooks in 1 turn. If it's only by
Okay.
1 bonfire, it takes 2 turns. And then you basically generate farms, and that gives you just like tons of resources.
Okay.
As you go, sometimes you want to upgrade your personal weapon, which you can do by
You could do that?
selecting and that's why you're bad at the game, because it's really important. You can upgrade it by selecting the base in between rounds, and you can upgrade once. You can upgrade the damage once, or for 30, and then a second time for 50, and you can upgrade the throwing distance once for 30, and then the second time for 50.
Okay.
I would say the 30 upgrades are more important than the 50 upgrades, but depending on
Okay.
it kind of depends on the level. But that's really nice, because if you upgrade even if you just upgrade the damage, a lot of times you can just upgrade your damage and spend the rest on chickens and just single-handedly defend your base for a lot of the
Hmm.
levels. And then the units, there's some theories with units, but I don't know. I mean, other than just stick your units in places where they can shoot as much as they can. So like if there's if there's 2 roads next to the spot where the unit is, then you stick your caveman there. And then as you get later in the game, you max out at 99 food, and you accumulate food during the battle. So if you're at a point where you're not actually having to use yourself to defend the base, you can run around and upgrade units during the fight. And that's almost
Oh,
like
really?
free resources, because you're going to because at the end of the fight you're going to get a bonus that's going to max out your resources. So
Gotcha.
it really is all about resource management, and then to an extent on some of the battles, like if you can remember exactly where everybody's going, you can run around and shoot stuff with your character. But yeah, like it's, and then by the time you get to the last level where there's it's called the 4 emperors, because there's 4 different 4 different enemy bases that are all sending enemies at you, and it gets wild. But like
Huh.
like I was having to do, when I finally beat it, the trick was in between rounds I would generate as many cavemen as I could and give them each 1 upgrade. But then because those cost 10, but then the second upgrade costs 30. So I would then, like, during the fight, run around and spend 30, because then you can spend 30 food in like 2 clicks, as opposed to having to spend 10 food in 2 clicks, and all that, and then by the end, and it was like I felt like I was the best video game person in the world. Like,
It's quite an achievement um, to beat some of these that you've beaten. I'm impressed. Like, hey, you know what?
yeah,
That's awesome.
so much, and it's just so much fun. Like, it was frustrating, but it was so much fun, and I can't wait till the second half of the collection. Are there any games that you wanted to shout out that I didn't talk about?
Plenty. There's a couple in here that are like, um, just I would have put in S tier that are coming up that you haven't discussed. But so notably, I would put well, yeah, I hate to spoil anything if you haven't played stuff too, you know what I mean? But since you talked about the first 2 rows, you haven't played Warp Tank yet?
I think that's the last one in the first 2 rows that I haven't played yet.
Okay.
Yeah, that's number 20,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I adored that one. I think it's great. It's it's kind of puzzly. It's kind of um, yeah, that one's fantastic. Um, a couple other ones that I would like to just briefly touch on because they're just
Hmm.
so good.
Yeah.
Uh, is so one that I haven't seen people talk about because I just loved it is Seaside Drive, which I had a ball with that. It has a great soundtrack. It's fun. The mechanics are good. I mean, it was kind of one of those, when I'm going through these, that one was one that I was just instantly like, oh yeah, like I want to play this one some more because I just liked it. Um, Rakshasa is a game that is probably one of the tougher games in the collection just to go through. It's a side scroller. Um, it's kind of the ghosts and goblins of this collection.
Okay.
It is
So
it is
that's gonna be
definitely tough.
one I don't beat.
Yeah, same probably. Although I'm still trying. Um, the Vanger is a Metal Storm esque game. A lot of people didn't play Metal Storm. It was kind of a late NES title, but the mechanic of that is gravity uh, manipulation. So that's a fun one. And you haven't talked about probably one of the most beloved games in the whole collection, which is Party House.
Okay.
And that is the deck building game in this collection. Um, and it is so addictive. At first when I was playing, I was like, "What's going on?" And then I spent a little bit of time, and it's like, "Oh, okay, that's what's going on here. This is a deck building game." And so, yeah, that game is definitely S tier. Um, Probably one of the best games. Just pick up and play for a while. Um, I think that Alphazar's Hat is underrated. Alphazar's Hat is the Pocky and Rocky clone, which Pocky and
Okay.
Rocky is like a SNES title that came out. I think that one's great. And then the last one that I'd probably shout out is Mini and Max, which Mini and Max is also one of the most beloved titles in this
Yeah, I've heard
collection, I think.
people liking those. Yeah, I'm always like those ones that yeah, like the Minimax and the Party House. Like, I'm like I have to be in the right because this is supposed to be one of the best ones. I have to be like not tired when I play it, which has
Well,
been
so I don't want to overhype Mini and Max. Like I think
uh
it's better if you play it like me and don't know what you're getting into.
okay.
Um, Going into it, I think that's probably better. Um, and so yeah, that one is definitely cool. And there's the whole RPG in there, Grimstone, right? Um, Grimstone's in there. It's pretty neat. There's so much good stuff in this collection. And then there's combat tents. There's one game in this collection I think is just bad. I think it's also universally been kind of panned, and that game is kind of frustrating. But if you play 49 games that are great, and there's one game in the mix that's just kind of like, it's kind of suck,
Yeah,
then you're doing
it's
you're
and
doing
it's
great.
just like I think that the most important thing if you're playing the collection is like if you're not enjoying a game, you can always come
Just
back
move
to
on.
it, but like to like move on to the next one and like you'll find something that you really really like because there's
Yeah.
the games are so different. The games are so consistently
Hmm.
well designed, and it's like because it's I mean like I was complaining about Paint Chase being 25 levels. But it's like some people are going to bounce off of Paint Chase, and some people like is going to be their like the definition of their personality. Like
Okay.
they're gonna I mean it's gonna be their game. Probably
Yeah.
not
Yeah. I
maybe not
mean,
every one of these games is going to be that, but like so if you want to put 15 hours, if a game clicks with you and you want to put 15 hours into it, then a lot of these games you can, which is I think really
that's
cool.
one thing I love about it is like everybody online who's playing this has different favorites. You know what I mean? Like, and they're not the same either. Like it's like, Onion Delivery is a lot of people's like least favorite game in the
Right,
collection
right. Which I think
because
is
they're just like, dude.
I think that's insane because there's some games that are like, even if you're just like Onion Delivery, at least the bad controls feel intentional.
Right.
There's other games that that the bad controls don't feel intentional, or like I'm like, why am I still playing this game? Whereas Onion's
Right.
Delivery, it's like, why am I still playing this game? Like, there must be some reason for it, as opposed to like, why am I still playing this game that I shouldn't be playing it? But
Oh my
yeah,
God. Yeah. I'm sorry. I've been sitting here playing pen golf this whole time.
uh,
Um, because you told me about the dunk ball thing, and like I just realized that's what that thing is, and I was like, oh my God, like, oh my God, how did I not know about this for so long? So it was worth appearing on this
yeah,
podcast today just so I could learn about the
yeah.
strategy
So
tips.
for all the games, check the controls. I would say the biggest thing for
Yeah,
this collection is don't judge a game until you played it for about an hour, because a lot of the games I think something clicks at about the 1 hour point, and then
sure.
two, check the controls. And also
Mhm.
like there's a pretty good community online. So like if you are struggling with something, I'm gonna be reviewing probably soon Valbrace, which is like a first
Oh yeah.
person dungeon crawler. And
Hmm.
like I do not have the patience for first person dungeon crawlers. Uh but somebody made maps, and or maybe they just took screenshots of maps, because I think there are maps in the game, but like with a map, much more playable.
Yeah, that game reminded me of so many other games like Arcana on SNES, or I played a DOS game called Morph's World way back when, and so that one I spent a little bit of time on it, and I was like, yeah, this was pretty fun.
Reminded me of Shining into Darkness, but then with
Oh yeah,
the combat is more reminiscent of like the combat's almost like Punch Out,
yeah. The combat is definitely cool. Um,
which is
yeah, I
why I
think that
don't feel
game's
bad
pretty
about
good.
doing the map thing, because there's it does because that's not the whole game.
Right.
Wandering aimlessly around or drawing your own map. Sorry, I'm not interested in drawing my own map. Um,
No, not
but
not in 2024. Sorry. Wow, this dunk ball thing. Oh my God. How did I not know about this? I'm so mad. Like I've spent so much time on this game.
all right. Well, I think that's all I had. That's all I had for you today. Do you have any like internet projects or anything you want to plug for the 8 people who listen to this?
Not really. So I'm in a band called Decapitron. We're working on getting our record made. So when that comes out, I guess I'll plug that. But until then, I'm just excited that you're doing this and talking about UFO 50 because I think it's a great game.
It
It's a
is.
great project, and I'm excited to see the positive reaction that people have had on it.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. I don't think I have a specific sign off for this. So yeah, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.
This podcast is a production of the KendallCast Podcast Network. You can support the show for just $2 a month at patreon.com/KendallCast, or make a direct donation through the PayPal link at kendallcast.ninja. Every little bit helps.